Hello, everybody. I'm Dale Maxwell. You have found Kickassery. What is Kickassery? Kickassery is where I talk to kick-ass people, just like this young lady. This is VioletRain, and she is an adventure hound, crystal lover, wordsmith, and professional thought provoker. Violet Rain Allen. Violet Rain Allen. See, I told you I was good at word
Oh,
vomit.
shoot. It should have been Freedom. I guess that hasn't been edited.
Has been has been a pioneer in the coaching industry for over 12 years, known as the Rebel Rouser. Violet Rain, the truth about lasting transformation, teaching fierce personal responsibility and energy mastery. She assists soul-driven entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers in an unapologetic activity and owning their unique soul genius. Well, I got through 3/4 of it without completely failing.
I thought you did great, Dale.
Young lady, how the hell you been? Where have you been? What are you doing now? It's been over 5 years.
It has. Yes, it has. It's been well over 5 years. Last time I spoke with you, I mean, man, I've had 3 moves since then. We had 2020, which threw everything upside down for everybody. I'm now not married to a man. I'm married to a woman. I've got 5 kids instead of 2, and I've 2 businesses, and I've got a couple gray hairs actually since we last spoke. I know it's crazy, but it's true.
It happens. It,
It
it
does.
happens. It happens. Now, I don't know if it happens for the right reasons or not, but it happens. So 3 moves, marriage, kids multiplied, businesses multiplied. You have been busy.
I've been busy, Dale. It's true.
So, what okay, so I'm going to say what prompted all that, but that's a lot. Where did it start? And I know, okay, no, let's back up a second. Let's back up a second before we get to that. You and I met through basically I saw you on the book face and I saw what you were doing and you're coaching and you were unapologetic and you were kicking names and taking ass. And I was like, I need to know this chick. I need to introduce myself. And it was a cold introduction and 100% honesty. I was nervous because I'm like, she's doing it and I'm just doing this weird little thing that I'm trying to figure out.
You're
And
so cute.
you are the first time anybody's ever said that. You were so amazing and so accommodating. And you know, we had a conversation, we had a phone call, and you just lit into me in a good way. But you kicked my teeth down my throat, and it was amazing. It was great. And I was like, okay, I think we're okay, right? And I did the hard ask, and I was like, would you be on my show, please? And you're like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, oh, okay. And fast forward to me typing up the hey, I'm finally getting it back going. Would you be interested? Same nerves. It's as stupid as it sounds, same nerves, because I'm seeing you from the 10-mile view and everything that you're doing and the life changes and the successes and everything that you're going through. I'm like, does she even have time? And you're like, hell yeah, let's do it. So your grace and acceptance and whatnot is something that is beautiful and amazing. And I appreciate you for that.
Thank you. That is so sweet. I love that.
So with all of that, you knocked people's socks off the last time you were on here because you just laid it out and you were talking about a lot of amazing things and masculinity and a lot of the things in business and also just coaching in general. With that success and your life changes, what prompted the big changes in your life? Because it seemed to me at that time, now of course hindsight being what it is, but at that time it seemed like you had your shit together and you were doing pretty solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I am really, really committed to living authentically and to doing things based on what my intuition guides me to do, not what my mind convinces me is right. And so on my journey of evolution and exploration, it became very clear to me that the marriage I was in wasn't supporting my highest potential anymore. And, I kind of felt that for a little while, but I was in kind of a delusion, Dale, that I was doing some sort of great service by like staying with this person, even though we weren't aligned. And then I got to the point where I realized, man, he deserves somebody that is wildly, outrageously in love with him and feels lucky to be with him instead of is in any sort of settling energy. And, here I am kind of putting myself unconsciously on a pedestal, being in a relationship that I'm thinking, he's so lucky to be with me. You're so lucky to be with me. Like there's a little ego in there, right? And when I had that realization, and that was end of February of 2018, once I saw it, and this is how I've always operated, once I can see the truth, I can't go back from it. And I don't do a lot of indecision or back and forth. And I know that's very different for other people, but I've been gifted with a decisiveness and a clarity that I also bring to my clients that I think is something that was truly just a spiritual gift that I have. And so when I saw and realized that it was a very done deal. Now the process of grieving that, however, that was hard. That was hard for me. We were together for 10 years and we had two beautiful children together, and he still is one of my very near and dear friends. He's actually followed me on all of the moves that I've made. So we separated in Idaho Falls. We moved to Ogden so that I could be with my now wife. And then we moved actually all the way out to Vernal so we could be near her ex-husband. So all the kids could have both of their parents in the same city. And he's just a rock solid, incredible human, willing to do that move. And wow. I really give a lot of credit of that to the fact that we had a very beautiful, conscious uncoupling. I was incredibly respectful and really great at my communication the whole time. And I chose well. When I chose him, I was very intentional to ask myself, if this ever went south, would this be a safe person to divorce? Would this be a safe person to fight with? How would he co-parent? And I don't know that a lot of people go into relationships thinking that way, but as a child, I experienced a lot of trauma and divorce and dysfunction in my life. So I kind of went in with both eyes open. And that transition was really, really big. Not quite as big actually as the realization that I was gay. So we could go there for a minute if you want.
That's a bit of a transition as well, especially coming from your background and where you have lived most of your life. That is, I could see that could have, I don't know if it could have been rough.
It was incredibly challenging. So I did a psilocybin journey, like a spiritual ceremony. And inside of that, my intention was just clarity about my spiritual gifts and my direction moving forward. During the time of my divorce, I was really rethinking my coaching, the direction I wanted to take it, what I wanted to do. I was really in kind of a mushy state. Nothing was really certain. So I went into this ceremony just really wanting to have even clearer vision and like confidence moving forward. And also I wanted to do some releasing of some of the grief I was having. And in that ceremony, I was basically shown that my divinely aligned partner was going to be a woman. This was like a 2x4 upside the head for me. I was completely taken off guard. I was shocked by this. It was very hard for me. I had a unique experience with it because I'd never like had a crush on a girl. I had never had, any like feelings about any women. And so to discover this was, I'm feeling the emotion coming up in my throat just talking about it. It was really hard. And I actually got on Instagram at the time and looked up lesbian couples because I had never even met a lesbian couple. Like a lesbian was like, I don't know, like a rare animal or something from the community I was raised in. It was like, it didn't exist. Yeah. I'm like, lesbian, what's a lesbian? And so I'm like looking at these images of women in relationships and women together, women kissing, women at their wedding. And I'm just like, like almost socializing myself to its existence. I really relate it similar to the first time I went to India. Um, I was invited to speak at this international women's convention. And when I got there, I had culture shock from the poverty. I'd seen videos, at school and stuff of poverty, but to be standing there 10 feet away from, a crippled child that has to crawl on the ground and is begging for money, it completely rocked my system. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't even know how to conceptualize that pain, and I didn't know what to do because I've been so privileged. I've been so blessed to live where I've lived. And it was like that with discovering that I was gay. It was like a culture shock where I had no exposure to female like relationships in that way. And it took me about 8 months to accept it. And as I was like feeling into it, and basically I was deconstructing my programming around it being evil and bad and wrong. And the more that I did that and I removed these layers of fear and these layers of like damnation, the more I was like, oh my gosh, I've always been gay. I I've always been gay. Like and now I'm to the point where imagining intimacy with a male, it's almost traumatizing to me. It's like there's an aversion to it because I'm so now clear in my truth. And in this whole process, Dale, I realized how much we don't even really know who we are until we've done our shadow work and our clearing work, because we're born just like blank slates, and then our parents and our community and our church
Mhm.
and our friends immediately start programming us with what's right and what's wrong and what's good and what's bad and what we like and what we don't like. So this process has been really beautiful and a little bit scary. And now, even now, like you could even show those pictures if you wanted. Like I used to be very, very feminine expressed. Like I had the long curly hair. And now there I am looking like a total stud muffin. Um, but right here I am, right, in my bikini competition in 2017. And to look at that photo and to look at me now, right, it's like, shit, that's 6 years ago. And how much I have changed and evolved. And it's a really bizarre process. And it's the process I take my clients through. So last January, I had been having a series of health concerns. And I was going into my OBG and I was trying to figure out like why I was having this reoccurring issue, and I was painful, and there was no solutions. I was trying the natural stuff. I was trying all this stuff. And then I did this journaling process and I did some introspection, and I really got back into my body. And like I literally just got dressed in the morning and asked, like, what do I feel the most me in? And it was
Mm.
almost like a night and day change. I stopped dressing feminine and started dressing this way. And I didn't like plan it. I didn't think about it. It was, if there was no judgment or no way I should look, how would I look? How would I be? And now, like, I mean, I had fake nails for so much of my life. I tried painting my nails like a month ago with my girls, and I was like squirming out of my skin. Like, I'm sure how a lot of men would feel in a dress or with their nails on. They're like, oh, this feels weird. That's how I feel now. And it's hard to explain that to people who haven't lived it.
Right.
But it's no different than people being in a career path that they're not really satisfied in. And then they finally find the thing and they're like, holy shit, I just like came alive. And that's what my life has been like. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So in that in that journey, that's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. Is in that journey, I'm sure that relationships have changed. Some family stuff has changed. That almost goes without saying.
Mm-hmm.
And in your immediate family with your wife and your kids, um, how am I trying to ask this question? I'm sorry, is not how difficult, but how do you handle, let's put it that way. How do you handle those conversations when, because my daughter is, we've changed schools and we're on an island now. And so completely different, but it's different conversations. And since those are really deep issues, not issues, topics. That's what I should have used. How do you navigate those conversations with your immediate family?
Yeah, that's a really beautiful question. I did want to add real quick, after I changed how I dressed, my physical symptoms went away. So I was having these chronic
Amazing.
issues and they left, which was really beautiful and often how things work in our lives. When we come into alignment, things come into alignment. It's really beautiful. So how do I handle the conversations? You know, when I came out to my parents and told them that I was gay, I was compared to a pedophile and a serial killer.
I'm
So
sorry.
one parent compared me to a serial killer, and the other compared me to a pedophile, and that's kind of where it started out, and it was pretty rough. I had a ton of compassion because I was raised inside of the programming. I was raised inside of that cult, so I knew how deeply rooted it was. So deeply rooted, I didn't even know my sexual preference. That's pretty extreme. I was living life so much from a mental place of what's right and what's wrong and what should I do, that I wasn't actually present in my body. If I would have just been in my body, and with full permission, from the time I was really young, I would have been attracted to girls. I just would have been, because it's biologically how I am wired and how I am made. But programming is so incredibly powerful. So I have a lot of grace for the people in my life, and I love them dearly. But it is sad and it is difficult at times. You know, my wife and I got married 2 years ago. We've been together 4 years now. And 2 years ago, when we announced that the wedding was coming, one sibling said, "Can you even do that? Can you even get married? Is it even legal?" That's how disconnected from the LGBTQ world they were, that they didn't even know it was legalized. Um, One of the parents said, "I don't know if I want to come. Think about it. You can ask your dad. I can't speak for him."
Right.
What? What are you saying? There's just such a disconnect there. So it's been a challenge. And, but the truth is, this is how the world changes. The world changes by people stepping out and being willing to make a sacrifice. And I am willing to, and it really comes down to, and I've told my parents this, and especially my dad incredibly respects this about me. I live my life so that I can look myself in the eye, in the mirror. That's how I live my life. My parents aren't around anymore. They don't even live here. I see them a couple of times a year, talk to them on the phone, ideally more than that. But this is my life at this point, and I have to be able to respect and feel like I'm in integrity with what I believe and what I feel. And so I'm willing to sacrifice being judged, being ridiculed, being called names, being damned to hell, because I'm wanting to build a better world. I want my kids and my kids' kids to feel safe to figure out who they are. I don't want them to, if I would have known, like some of the issues from my marriage, I didn't know this. Some of them were because I was gay and I didn't know.
Mm.
Like that really impacts a relationship when you're in it in an obligation and in a mental way to check a box, versus you're legitimately deeply attracted to and passionately involved with your lover. And
Right.
so um, I believe that I wouldn't have had to have had a divorce if I would have known and have chosen a woman. And so a lot of broken homes happen, and a lot of dysfunction happens, and a lot of pain, and a lot of trauma, and a lot of addiction, a lot of suicide happens because society is so fucking ignorant. And I say that very lovingly, but we're just completely uneducated. As I was, those 8 months when I was figuring out that I was gay, I was researching gayness because I wanted to understand it. And,
Right.
they've developed a technology. I believe it was a research project with Harvard and one of the other big fancy schools. It was like a combined thing that they did, where they developed an AI that with a photograph could within 70 to 80% accuracy tell you if someone was gay, because
Wow.
it found measurable differences in the facial structure of people who were same-sex attracted. They have found and done studies on the brain, and people who are same-sex attracted, their brain is wired differently. It fires differently. I have a very masculine, logical brain, which helps creating, like, of course I'm attracted to my opposite. I'm attracted to that femininity. I'm attracted to the creativity and the flow, right? And so when I started studying this and really coming to understand that this is truly biological, like born this way, and I know a lot of really religious people have all sorts of negative stuff to say about that. But at the end of the day, like, the facts are the facts and the science is the science. And I truly believe that in 10 to 20 years from now, a lot of these LGBTQ trans issues that are creating so much division and hate and discrimination, they're going to be in our rearview mirror. I mean, look at racism, for example. I know it's still alive and well, with especially the less educated and honestly more impoverished people are. And I'm being incredibly general here, and I'm very much stereotyping, and I'm going to admit that. But we can see trends in certain populations of homophobia and of racism. And oftentimes it is people with less education, less exposure to the world at large, and often in a certain income class that's lower.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that I'm living out here where I'm living in a really small town, population 10,000, off in the middle of nowhere, Utah. And it's a lot of a redneck vibe, but the lack of education here and the amount of trauma and drugs and poverty that's dealt with here, this is the most homophobic place I've ever been in my life.
Right.
It's really, really wild. So I just see my life as my message, and I'm willing, and I believe that my children chose me as well, and they're strong and they're here and they're part of the mission, because my kids were bullied at school because they had two moms, and kids weren't allowed to play with them because of that. And sad on one hand, sure, but also on the other, I am honored that I was born where I was born, with the intelligence that I have and the exposure that I have. And I see it as my sacred right, duty, and obligation to stand for a transformed world, to stand here saying there are better ways to resolve conflict. There are better ways to educate our youth. There are kinder ways to resolve these really emotive issues that people have. But if you take religion and you take that programming out of it, we have almost no problem.
And I'm not going to disagree with any of that, you know, and the thing that upsets me, thank you so much for sharing all that. That's incredible and brave. And I know this isn't the first time you've publicly said things, but I appreciate that. And the thing that upsets me about religion, I'm a faith-based guy. I'm not a religion-based guy. You know, I grew up in a church and whatnot, but my family was not the staunch churchgoers. But my dad was very educated in the Bible. You know, he read the entire Bible and the books that didn't make it into the original Bible. You know,
Yes.
So with me, I get so frustrated and upset with, I'm going to use the word zealots, but it might be a little egregious, it is not my job to judge. It is not my job to make decisions. That is not my job. You know, whether we're Bible thumping or we're just talking about faith, because you have your faith, I have my faith. You know, your faith may not be celestially based. It may be more scientific based, whatever the case may be. It doesn't freaking matter. At the end of the day, you and I, as you being super intelligent, me being and we can have this conversation and be okay with it. You know, this is probably one of my biggest frustrations, whether it's the LGBTQ, the religion, the politics, the science, the COVID, not COVID, all of these divisive, polarizing topics in the world, is that we are not able to sit down at a table and just have a conversation and be okay with even disagreeing. But more importantly, not being open-minded and going, okay, I'm listening to you and I understand what you're saying and I get it. And I appreciate your honesty. Here's my point. And we can sit down and we can agree to disagree, or we can go, those are really good points. Why can't we just, and go from the table without throwing negative, not negatives, calling each other bad words and being super judgmental and damning people to hell, which that is not our job as humans anyway. you know
Yeah.
and for you to have the courage to step up and step in and make those decisions, and as you were telling your story and those trials and tribulations, the thing that really hit me as well is that as a coach, and as a coach teaching people to be their real self, you're not coming into it hypocritically. You have the story and you've gone through all this, and you've gone through significant transitions to say, no, what I'm walking the walk and I'm talking the talk, and this, you are a success story for you. And I'm making an assumption, but I don't think it's a very far off assumption, is that that's probably one of the reasons why your clients love and adore you so much, is because you're coming in with authenticity and going, I I did what I preach and it sucked for a while, but look at where we're at. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the trade-off, it's completely and entirely worth it. It doesn't come without grief or without sadness. I was raised around 64 first cousins that were tight as can be. And when I was, 7 years ago, I was having babies with them and raising my family with them. And I had a lot of community. And now I don't. I don't have a
Yeah.
lot. I don't have the same numbers that I had in my life. And I've been estranged from some of my family. And that is sad, of course.
Yeah.
But, I've lived a life in a relationship that wasn't aligned. I've lived a life, in a relationship void of passion. And I wouldn't trade my new kids, my stepkids, for anything in the world. I feel like I was made to be their mother. I was made to be in their life. I adore them. They were made to be siblings to my children. I've had so many spiritual confirmations of my life path that make it so much easier to deal with the struggle. And that's what I teach my clients. When you're connected to something greater and bigger and higher than yourself, and you truly believe your life is being guided, it makes it that much easier to navigate the shit show that is life. The death, the divorces, the pain, the sicknesses, all of that becomes so much easier when you have a solid, grounded connection to your higher power and to yourself, your truth. So, I live to help people connect to that and live in their purpose abundantly. I'm obsessed with helping people make money. But so often that's connected to worthiness, that's connected to, mental sabotages and insecurities. So it is truly amazing to be paid to just be the best version of myself. And I really believe we all get that. The key to Dale being more successful is for Dale to be more Dale, more of who you already are, and to honor your preferences and to trust that your desires are safe guidance, leading you towards your most aligned, most effortless path. And just because we're living our dream doesn't mean we're not going to still experience challenges. It rains on us all, right? It rains on us all. But you can pack an umbrella and you can, find shelter and you can dance in the rain if you don't have either of those. And so what it comes down to is I am just so incredibly passionate about helping people live better, happier, more successful lives. Not in spite of challenges, but sometimes because of it. The challenges we face. I had an amazing gentleman in here earlier today, Q, and he said this, and I wrote it down. He said those challenges and those traumas become the fertilizer for our new life. And if you're hiding your shit away and you're not dealing with it and you're shoving it in a bin somewhere in a garage, it can't be fertilizer. In order to fertilize our life, we have to be willing to pull those things out, those insecurities, those traumas, those stories, and look at them and sit with them and, mix them into the soil and plant our seeds there. So even though I'm sitting in the trauma of everything I don't want, everything I'm experiencing with my parents has really clarified the parent I want to be. I want to be a parent that is 100% love and acceptance always, with healthy boundaries, but without my own agenda being asserted. I want to empower my kids to be able to make their own decisions for themselves versus give them a template and say, these are right. And so because of that, it's truly shaped the person that I am today. And it has, there weekly, Dale, there'll be moments where I'm sitting across from somebody and I'm able to say something to them to bring them peace or clarity or direction in their life because I've walked the shit. And in those moments, I have so much gratitude for the shit, for the life I've lived, because to see that person light up, to see that person have the hope I didn't have, it's everything.
Yeah.
It's everything to get to be that person.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah. My dad, it's funny. I love using my dad's quotes, and he was a very wise man with no education, and he always said, because I would bitch about, this sucks, man, this is hard, growing up as a kid, teenager, college, this sucks. And he's like, you got to have the bad so you can really appreciate the good. Because if it's all good all the time, he's like, you don't appreciate it. And I'm like, and this is a man that he went through some shit. He was in the hospital for 13 months with a broken back.
Wow.
And he came out of it, and he was, successful and went on with life. And yeah, we we're seeing a lot of the quotes and whatnot, but some of our greatest growth comes after our greatest hardships, because we have to go through that. Now, you had mentioned earlier that some of those hardships people can't get through, and that's where suicide happens. That's where alcoholism and drug and and I think we're not, some of us, because I've went through this in different parts of my life, some of us don't have those tools to try to figure that thing, whatever that thing is. And for all of us, another really, really good friend of mine, the wisdom abounds in the people that we truly love and put good people around us. That wisdom is insane. Is my shit may not mean anything to you because you've gone through deeper shit. But he's like, your shit's your shit. And if it's really hard for you right now, then that's your whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, because it's easy for me. I have a hard time with, I'm like, oh man, what am I bitching about? Why am I crying because of whatever it is? She's had it harder. He's had it harder. They've, but this is mine right now that I have to process and figure out.
Yeah, it's truly relative. I see people say that and they minimize what they're emotionally navigating. And I mean, it truly is relative. Like, what's the temperature of the water? Well, it depends on the temperature of your skin. If I'm really, really cold, it might burn me. It might shock me. But if I'm really warm, it might feel luke. It might feel skin temperature. And so it really depends on the age, the stage, the mindset, and where we are. And I've seen people do this whole like, my trauma is worse than your trauma thing. And it's fucking ridiculous. I've worked with people who've had a air quote perfect childhood and they're just completely upside down and backwards. And that doesn't mean they're weaker minded. That doesn't mean anything. It's like we keep wanting to attach all these meaning and judgments to things instead of just being like, okay, well, the sun is shining. So I mean, it's a good day or a bad day, or it's like, it just is. Like where somebody is, if we could just accept where we are, then we could get going to where we want to be. But instead we sit where we are and we're like, well, why am I where I am? and let me judge where I am, and let me compare where I am, where I am. It's like, fucking drop it all. Let's decide point A, let's decide point B. And instead of wasting our time bitching about it, talking about it, complaining about it, gossiping about it, debating about it, let's just change it. And I think we waste a lot of time in this weird debate that's like, it's a non-conversation in my mind.
I've been there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I was probably there 2 days ago. You know,
right. I mean,
on big things, little things, you know,
yeah.
Yes, that internal self-deprecation, negative spiral, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. We all, I don't know. And maybe I'm too general with this, but I believe we all have that at some level. Some of us probably
Yes.
more dark than others.
Well, okay, so it really depends on frequency, right? So it's like there's a radio that, like, it's like we're a radio, and there are stations around us all the time. And when I'm at a really high aligned frequency, I'm hearing the station that's like, you're amazing, you can do it, I love you, you've got this, right? And if I turn my dial to a lower frequency or dimension, I'm hearing things like, you suck, why'd you do that? You shouldn't have said that, you're stupid, blah, blah, blah. And if you go even lower than that, and the reason I know this is because I've worked with hundreds of people and all of their limiting beliefs are the same. And I started thinking, is this your thought or is this a collective thought? Like, where is this actually coming from? And what I found is that your frequency, where you're at energetically, determines the thoughts in your head, the voices that you're available to. So if we've got a lot of self-deprecation going on, we need to shift. We need to shift into a different frequency. As much work as I've done on myself, and I've been around the block, I've been doing my personal development work since I was 12. My parents went through this nasty divorce, and that's why I was able to be coaching and making six figures in my early 20s, is because I've been doing the work on myself for a long time. But do I still go into those self-deprecating places? Yes, I did yesterday. And it's because I dropped my frequency. Something didn't go the way I thought, and I allowed a story to brew. I attached a bunch of meaning, and then I'm feeling like shit. And when people can understand that their mind works the same as a recipe, it's like, yeah, if you put an egg on the stove, but you don't turn on the burner, nothing cooks. Like, there's an order and a sequence to things. So when we know that, we can reverse engineer it, and it doesn't have to be such a mystery. It's not like, ooh, I hope I feel good tomorrow, or I hope I'm confident tomorrow. It's like, you actually can generate that. You can create it, you can choose it, you can tune into that channel. It can take a lot of the mystery away for it. So you're 1,000% right. We all experiencing self-deprecating thoughts because we all could tune into that channel.
Right.
And the channel of even suicidality, which is a really sensitive topic, but a really big epidemic, that is a frequency. When you get down there to that point, guaranteed, I've never talked to a single person, and I could be wrong. So if I am, jump in the comments, correct me. I'm open to it. But everybody I've ever talked to that struggled with suicide, that ever attempted to take their life or got to that point, somewhere along the line, there was a convincing thought that everyone would be better off without me. Every fucking single one of them. And I'm talking, women with 5 children. I'm talking, grown ass men with their whole life in front of them and they just got let off a job. The way they eventually got to that place where they really considered that exit strategy, it was that. It starts with the belief that there's no way out. That's always there. There's always a belief that there's no way out. Because when people believe there's a way out and that they could feel better or something, whatever the circumstance could change, they don't do it because there's hope. But hope has to be taken away. And there has to be a very convincing statement that anybody that I would leave behind is going to be better off with me in the long run. And so when you see those two beliefs, we can really begin to start targeting that sabotaging voice. I see it I like to see it in my spiritual belief system. It's like, it's a fucked up energy. It's like an entity and it's a cancer and it wants to siphon your life force and it wants to convince you that your mission isn't worth it. People don't want to. It's all just bullshit attacks and it's frequency based. So if we raise our frequency and we are protecting ourselves by how we treat ourselves and how we talk to ourselves and the people we surround ourselves with, that isn't going to have the same level of hold because we have the hope there. And obviously I'm not a clinical therapist or psychologist because I didn't go that route. I didn't want red tape. So a lot of the things I'm saying, I just invite people to take with a grain of salt. I do know that there's a lot of variation when it comes to the world of mental health. But I also do believe that a lot of the diagnoses and problems we're seeing are symptoms of a spiritual epidemic in which people are just disconnected from their truth. They're disconnected from source. If you're connected to God's source energy, that energy will tell you how fucking amazing you are. It will tell you that there is hope. It will tell you that there's a purpose. And that's our job, is to stay connected to that space. And if you're connected to that space truly and deeply, and you're doing your healing work and you're still struggling with suicidality, I would be surprised, because the people I've worked with that have gotten back to that place, that symptom goes away because life force energy and hope and belief has been restored. And life truly can be so incredibly beautiful and amazing. I mean, just driving in the car, looking over at my wife and seeing her smile and seeing her dimples, it's like I don't need anything else in the world, you know? And looking at my kids laughing together. I've got these 2 little boys I'm raising that are freaking hellions, and they can get into the craziest giggle fest, and they're just obnoxiously, adorably wonderful. And the joy that brings to me, it's like those moments make life worth living. And there's so many more beautiful moments to be had. So if anyone's listening to this that struggled at all with that feeling of you're so hopeless, you're so trapped, there's no way out but to die, and you think that your people would be better off without you, I want you to know that's just a lie. It's a lie. And you can feel good again. No matter how many years you've been depressed, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, please hear my voice and keep believing. You know, keep believing. Maybe this next medication isn't the one. Maybe tapping and EFT isn't it. Maybe it's not EMDR. Maybe it's psilocybin. Maybe it's ketamine. I don't know what your most aligned treatment plan is, but I do know this for a fact, is that there is one, and that you can be better and you can heal. And anyone that would tell you otherwise is fucking lying to you. And any voice that would tell you otherwise, we don't want to listen to it. So just destroy and uncreate all of that bullshit and come back to the true knowing that you're the creator of your life, and you are being guided and you are supported. And if you're hearing my voice right now, it's for a fucking reason. And you have ancestors, you have angels, you have guides that love you and that brought you to this message and are bringing you to Dell and are bringing you to other tools, resources, people, and information, because you are so loved and you are so valuable. And I see miracles every single day. Every day. I work in the miracle making business, and it's the best and the highest honor and privilege of my life, and I never take it for granted. I am one of the luckiest, most blessed people on this planet. I get to see and watch your angels and loved ones direct me. I channel all the time, my podcast, my Monday pocket coaching, even the things I'm saying right here, right now. I am being guided to say certain things on behalf of the people listening. And
Preach
it's not because I'm
Preach it.
preach. It's not because I'm special or different. Anybody can do this. You have your own connection to source energy. And I just decided that I'm giving my life to it and that I'm on a mission here. And so I receive those messages. You can too, and you will, and you do. I'm just simply saying this to demonstrate to you the power of your spiritual team, the power of the way they place you in the right places, in the right moments, at the right time, with the right people to get what you truly need. And it's time for you to be willing to receive it and to be willing to believe that there's so much more going on than just what we think we see and know.
You're amazing.
Back at you, brother.
So I don't even know how to follow that incredible tirade. That was incredible. That was awesome. I did have one thought as you were going through that and talking, and you were talking about not staying in that place, not staying in that frequency, that negativity, whatever that is for that person. And it brought a thought. So, in my small, tiny, itty bitty way of trying to do what you're saying right there. So I coach my kids' soccer teams and I love it, you know, so I'm coaching 7, 8-year-olds, and then now my numbers are off, 9 to 13, whatever those ages are. So one of the things that I love about coaching kids is it's not all about the skill. It's not all about the skill. Is that you have an opportunity to do life skills in this moment because you have them corralled for the hour and a half, and they can't go anywhere and they have to listen to you, right? So I take full advantage of that. And it's, okay, so I'm a little bit of a comparison here. So you're teaching people techniques in a life-changing way on spirituality and self-improvement and things like that. So what I'm teaching is I'm teaching kids physical skills that are very frustrating and very overwhelming because they're having their bodies do something that they've never done before, and it doesn't make sense. And they get very overwhelmed and they get very frustrated and they get very down and so one of the things, and I guess one of the things that I try to do is I'm like, okay, it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be angry. Be angry at me. That's okay. It's okay to have these things, to feel these things. The trick is to not live there. And so that's my rudimentary way of saying what you're trying to say is, at their level, I'm like, just don't stay there. Be there for a short period of time. Yell, grunt, groan, whatever you need to do, get that out, and then let's move on. And so then that way we can continue to learn. And, the last couple of weeks, and then I'll get off this tirade, but the last couple of weeks, I've been really challenging the older kids with higher level techniques, and I've been pushing them hard. And it's not just pushing hard physically. There's a lot of mental aspect to that as well, because they're learning gameplay and they're learning maneuvers and they're learning techniques. And, our brain has to process it right for our bodies to do what our bodies need to do those things. And so I've had a lot of bad attitudes the last couple of weeks because we're working through that, but the joy I have with coaching my littles, and I'm sure your joy with coaching us old fogies, is that aha moment, that light bulb where it goes from frustration, anger, disappointment to, holy shit, I just did this right. And I'm on the other side of this. As a coach, for me with the littles, that's a beautiful moment for me to see that, and then go from to, hey, I got this. So,
well, I love that. I love that you're saying that, because that's what it's really about. What it's really about is teaching somebody that they can be depressed, or they can, well, like in your example, right? They're frustrated, they're overwhelmed with what they're doing, and then they accomplish it. And what that creates is a level of self-report and confidence that you can't get any other way other than facing challenge. They're like, oh, I can be overwhelmed and I can be frustrated and I can still figure it out and it's going to feel great. And when I bring somebody in who has just experienced disappointment after disappointment, trauma after trauma, or hardship after hardship in creating the life that they want, and I'm able to show them that they can create the life they want. They can have that, six-figure business. They can shift these things, find that relationship that truly honors them and respects them. You give them a gift that they keep for forever. The rest of their life is completely changed now, because it's not about learning how to achieve. It's learning how to be an achiever. It's not learning how to do math. It's learning how to be a learner. It's learning how to be frustrated and to get playful. It's learning how to be confused and get curious instead of pissed. Yeah. Because we quickly discover the more frustrated and angry I become about where I am, the longer I stay there, right? I see this. It's funny you say this. I'm coaching my daughter's volleyball team, and it's 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And there's a girl on the team that just gets so frustrated that she can't serve the ball over the net. She's so mad. And I'm just like, I'm constantly getting to pull her aside and help her emotionally regulate, because she's getting so pissed. She's like, she can't hear me. She can't see what I'm showing her. She's forgetting things because she's been basically completely blindsided and sabotaged by her emotion. So it is one of the greatest gifts that we can give people, is showing them. And that's like the teach a man to fish versus give a man a fish. I would much rather my kids be incredible learners and learn how to, I want my kids to feel like it doesn't matter what it is, I can figure it out. I
Yep.
could watch a YouTube, I could read a book, I could ask somebody who knows more, and there's nothing I can't do, learn, or figure out. And I feel like if they leave my home and they go into the world with that instead of, maybe knowing trigonometry or calculus, then they're going to have a more successful, abundant, joyful life. And that's really what it comes down to.
So Violet Rain, here's what's incredible about what you just said. I don't consider myself, and you're going to yell at me, and that's okay. I don't consider myself a highly intelligent person. I consider myself a person that can figure shit out. Okay. So, and you're working on it. I see it.
That's
But here's the thing.
intelligence, Dale. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. But here's the thing. You said that, and I get people all the time. They're like, how do you know how to do this and this and that and this and this? And I'm like, well, I'm a ranch kid. I'm a farm kid. And naturally, and we lived 20 some miles out of town. So you figure out how to make things work, and you have to learn on the fly. And that's how I was raised, as a farm kid, as a ranch kid, and so I look at it, and here's where I struggle. And it might be an arrogance thing, I don't know, but here's where I struggle is that people come to me and they're like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. And I look at it, I'm like, absolutely you can. Absolutely you can, because this is not rocket science. This is not something that you need, whatever it is. Like, I did one that pops into my mind. I redid the floor of our house in Maryland, and it wasn't anything. It looked fancy. It looked incredibly amazing. I took 100 and some pallets, broke them down, and I made a kitchen floor out of them. Okay. It looked extremely complicated, but it wasn't. And so I had so many people come through and they're like, oh, I could never. And I'm like, actually, you can. You absolutely can. It's if you choose to. Because I'm like, I learned so much on what not to do, how not to do it. I'm sure there are better ways to do this, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is in life. I'm sure there is much better ways to do what you and I are doing right now. I'm figuring out what not to do. So then that way, the next time I might be able to step it up just a hair,
Yeah.
But that's, and I think that's also my faith in people. I have such an incredible faith in people and their ability and what I know people can do more than they can, because if this redneck can do things, anybody can do things. That's my true belief.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I love that you're saying that. Like, from the outside looking in, people look at the things I do and the things I've created, and they're like, holy shit, it's incredible. And I'm like, dude, I can teach you to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had kind of a natural knack for finding my way and figuring it out, but that's literally what I'm here to do, is show people how to create the life of their dreams, just like I have. And I'm
Yeah.
still doing it, right? Because it's like you dream a dream and then there's another dream.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the next thing, the next level. And we're always expanding and growing into that.
Right. And I think that elasticity in life is important. I think now more than ever, we look at our grandparents' era, my parents, because my folks are older, but our grandparents' era, and it was the same job, 50 years, 40 years, it was very, and that worked for their era. That created stability, that created longevity, that, right or wrong, but it was right for their era. And now longevity is not necessarily looked at as a positive thing in certain areas. But for us personally, I know I have buddies and family, especially family, that looks at me and they're like, you are a fart in the wind. You do a bunch of different things. You've not ever done anything for a long period of time. You've not had a job for a long period of time. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Because I die slowly if I'm doing the same damn thing every day for year in, year out. I die slowly. And Yet I have friends and my brother, who I love and I respect dearly, he's the exact opposite of me. He doesn't want to do new things. He wants his job that he shows up to every day. He's supposed to be there. He does his job phenomenally well. It's the same job every single day. That fulfills him. So what I do scares the bejesus out of him. And what he does, I look at as slow death. But it fits him and he's happy. This fits me. I'm happy. That's the world. And it takes all kinds.
Yes, it does.
You know, and whatever our truths are, and you've touched on it several times. Unfortunately, some of us don't find our truths or our vision or our whatever the term is until later in life. You know, and yet look at Colonel Sanders and what he created at 64, 67. And that's something that I struggle with in myself is I'm like, ugh, I'm so old. I haven't found my, haven't hit my stride. And then, you know, back up a second, be like, okay, all right. I've been in school this time. I'm raising my kids. So it's okay, Dale. It's okay, Dale. And I don't give myself grace very, very easily, very well. I don't. And I admit that.
Dale, it sounds like we need to schedule a session. I could help you with that.
You're being honest, not being honest. There's just a whole bunch of honesty going on.
That's the best way. That's the best
way. Now, with that, this
you
young
want to talk
lady,
about my name, Dale? Oh, it's my favorite kid. I can't say who that is. My wife's commenting. If I say it and other kids are watching, I'm screwed. So you're right. You are my favorite.
Looks a lot like this lady right here.
That's my wife. Yes.
And you mentioned it before many times. I want to share this picture because I think it is absolutely adorable and amazing.
Yeah, those are my babies.
I love it. So yeah. So okay, everybody. At the beginning, before we even started, I had to ask the question because I was like, I don't in marketing and this because the last time we talked, you were Nancy Ray, and I even sent you a message, which I'm sure you weren't. You didn't have time to get back to me. I was like, so are we Nancy Ray? Are we VioletRain? I don't know what to call you.
Yeah.
So what's the story on the name?
Yeah. So I was born a Nancy, and it's a family name. And okay. The story is I was born into a religious cult, and it's a family name. And in the history goes that my grandmother was born, and my great-grandpa, my great-grandma were arguing about what to name her. And my great-grandpa wanted to name her Nancy, and my great-grandma wanted to name her Anne. So when he went up to bless her in this ceremony in front of the whole church and all the people, he decided to name her Nancy Ann without the blessing from his wife to do so. So from very early on, that name was kind of something that was kind of forced and asserted. And it was a feud their entire lives till they passed. He kept calling her Nancy Ann, and she just called him Ann. She registered my grandma in school as Ann. Everyone just knows her as Ann. But my great-grandpa always called her Nancy Ann. And so then when my mom was little, she decided she was going to name her first daughter that before I was born, before she met me, before anything. So my entire life, I had this name that sort of was a feud name. And I had kind of some weird energy attached to it. And not only that, it was really connected to my mom's idea of how she wanted me to be. She wanted me to be her Nancy girl. And I was blessed with gorgeous, thick, curly hair. I loved my hair for all of my life until I decided to cut it. And I still love my curly hair. It just doesn't fit me anymore. I've outgrown that in my life. But my mom had a lot of opinions about how she wanted her oldest daughter to be. And some of that came with some religious programming, and some of that came with some trauma. And so in January of 2020, as I've been struggling with my name for years. So when I got married, I changed my first name to Nancy Ray because that was my middle name was Ray. And I thought, well, Nancy Ray is kind of like Nancy Ann. So now it honors my grandma and my grandpa. And it's like I have both names. And Nancy Ray was less girly and less old school than just Nancy. So then I
Okay.
legally had my name changed and I lived as that name for about a decade, all through my first marriage. And so when I got with my wife and I was really, really deeply processing even more of the trauma because I had a whole new layer of my family kind of abandoning me and estranging me, I started to feel allergic to the name. And right now it's to the point where if somebody calls me that, it's almost a trauma trigger. It's like I
Mm,
almost get a little sweaty when I'm called that.
I'm
Um,
sorry.
you're okay. You're okay. You're okay. No, when there's people who have history with me and they're not intending to do it, some people have weaponized it. They're like, I'm not going to call you
Mm,
your new name and things like that. But I changed it. So the selection of it is an interesting story. It was a very spiritual experience, kind of a download. I actually had resistance to it initially. I was like, VioletRain, like what the fuck is this name?
right.
But it's definitely grown on me. A lot of my friends call me V, and I've been living with this name now since 2020. So we're almost 4 years in, and I love it. And a lot of people would say it was a bad business move because it was like starting all over in my business because my name was my brand. But I've done that multiple times and reinvented myself over the years because I'm just not available to let some sort of rule about branding dictate my personal life and what I want. So I decided that I was changing it and I decided it was going to help my business, not hurt it. And it has. So does that answer your
Nice.
question?
Yeah. So when I was getting ready to do this again, I was like, I'm looking everybody up. I'm trying to reconnect because I kind of disappeared for a while, with the vid and life and moving and So I'm trying to find people and I'm looking up Nancy Ray and I'm like, I can't find her. What? And it took me a minute to find you. And I was like, oh, interesting. Okay, cool. Let's rock and roll. So um man, to say that I'm thankful and I appreciate you is a bit of an understatement. Is just you being willing to be you and to take in, we are now an hour of your day to do this and share and just put out incredible, amazing stories and information and share your transformation in personal life and in business life. And um yeah, wow. I'm You and I think could go for another 2 hours. I think I'm going to cut us off a little bit.
Well, when the
And
people demand it, I will come back. I would love to do another interview with you, Dale.
all right, we'll do a version 2.0 on this. 100%. 100%. And careful what you ask for because you're going to get it for sure. Because I think what I'd like to talk about on version 2.0 of Violet Rain is the business transition and where you're going in your business and having a a candid conversation about that. I think business right now, being an entrepreneur is such an in thing, but it's the hardest freaking thing in the world as well. And I I know a lot of my close friends are like, I just the fear and the anxiety of losing security and putting yourself out there and being vulnerable in a way that is being an entrepreneur and being vulnerable at that level, that's a whole other discussion and a whole other conversation. So, but with that, yeah, I applaud you and I look up to you and I appreciate you so much.
Oh my gosh, Dale, you are sweet. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me and creating this amazing space. And thank you, everyone who's joined us here. Be sure we stay connected. Go follow me online, connect with me, private message me, and I'll send anybody who's listened to this a little gift. I've got a archetypes masterclass I'd love to gift you to help you really see your mindset and be able to shift that frequency to be listening to those empowering positive voices versus, the bullshit saboteur voices. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
That's amazing. All right. Well, it's not just me saying this was amazing. Just want to put
Uh,
that out there.
what's up, Tina Marie?
So it's not just me letting you know.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Oh, and then of course, Jason, great job, kids. This dude, this is another dude. He's the one, Jason helped me kick off Kickassery 2.0. He hates being in front of a camera. He hates talking to people. And he was so gracious to go, fine, I'll be your first. And of course he rocked it out. So I am blessed, and I am I love this. I love you guys. So with that, I am so impressed, thankful, and I think that my trepidation of getting Kickassery going is gone now. Between the first 4, we are rocking and rolling. We are building this. We are going to go. So with that, I don't feel sad at all or weird about saying, please, everyone, if you've made it this far, jump on, like, subscribe, all of that jazz. Jump over to VioletRain. Make sure she understands your love. Follow her if you're new to her as well, because it is absolutely worth it. And I am working on the pay side of this as well to help fund this as well, to keep it moving, keep it growing. And I've got plans. And young lady, you are definitely going to be a part of that plan. So I appreciate you.
Cool.
We're going to say our goodbyes and hang out for just a minute.
Bye, guys.
All right. I love your face. I wish I could squeeze it.